I'm kind of speechless after that loss. I mean, it was just that was an embarrassing officiating display in the fourth quarter. I mean, there's no other way around it. The Kings lost the game to the officiating. You think the Kings scored 15 points in the fourth quarter because of the Hawks' lockdown defense? Like, no, of course not. The Kings lost a 1 point game and they fought, they scrapped, they did what they were supposed to do. And it wasn't enough because the officials did not officiate in a fair game in the fourth quarter. And that's really that. That Dyson Daniels block was not clean at the end. So you could look at that one. You could also look at DeAndre Hunter tackling De'Aaron Fox out of bounds to then go hit an open three because Fox was down and then calling a technical on Fox. That's a 6 point swing because it should have been free throws for Fox. A 6 point swing late in the game. And then you can count countless others. Keegan Murray fouling out on soft calls. The amount of moving screens that the Kings were called for when Clint Capella is literally going up and pushing guys with two hands in the back on his screens. It was just, what are you supposed to do? There's nothing you can do about that. And it's sad because now we've gone 3 games now without, big time players being out for us. And we went 1-2 in that stretch. And so is that the end of the world? No. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us by, 1 game late in the season in the standings. Hopefully it won't. We're still in a fine spot in the standings. But coming into this game, this is not a game that I thought the Kings were going to win. And they came out and it didn't look like we were going to win. We were down 22-6. And the Kings battled back and played well enough to deserve this win. And so it's just a shame how it ended down the stretch. It was so nice having DeMar DeRozan early in this season before he got injured these last couple of games because we got to feel what it was like to have the officials on your side and actually get foul calls when you get fouled. And then you come into this game and Keon Ellis is shooting three-pointers, gets fouled on three-pointers, and they didn't call a single one. De'Aaron Fox had 4 free throws in this game. He took 17 shots inside the arc. He got 4 free throws. And it's sad because just like, the Kings lost that Minnesota game, and it was sad that the Kings wasted a 60-point effort from Fox, but it definitely does not feel as bad as this game where, we wasted a 33-point effort from Keon Ellis where he goes insane and another really solid game from De'Aaron Fox because it wasn't the Kings that wasted the shot. And so that's why it feels so bad. Because for me, I think in terms of the performance the Kings put out there, you can take away so many positives, but man, in this Western Conference, like you need every game you can get. And so just hoping that this doesn't come back to bite us because it's not like it was just one call missed down the stretch. It was the entire fourth quarter. Almost every single play was either the Hawks getting the benefit of the whistle offensively or a no call defensively. And when you lose a 1 point game, you can say that is the reason you lost. Also, it's pretty crazy that Keon Ellis was getting a better whistle than De'Aaron Fox down the stretch. Not that they weren't fouls. They were fouls, and Keon rightfully got to the line. But, so are the ones on Fox. And he just continues to have one of the worst whistles in the league, no doubt. But we can go to the start of this game and try to move past it being a loss and look at what actually happened in the game and what the actual result should have been based on how these teams were both playing. And the Kings decided to start Alex Len after they went small ball last game with Trey Lyles. And it makes sense because you have Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu on the other side ready to catch lobs at any point from Trae Young. So the Kings wanted to go with that size, also the offensive rebounding from a guy like Clint Capella. So it made sense that the Kings went with Alex Len. And he showed why they started him right away, just getting multiple blocks. He ended the game with 3. You also had Keegan Murray starting this game out, getting multiple steals. And so the defense looked good to start, but the offense looked awful. And one of the main problems was the Kings just not being able to get into the paint all that much. And then when they did, guys not being able to convert. And it was another game of Kevin Huerter and Keegan Murray struggling from the field. So just like the Minnesota game for Huerter and just like really the past 2 games for Keegan Murray. And what the Hawks were doing where they were just pressuring on the perimeter whenever the big for the Kings had the ball out in the perimeter, trying to find someone off the, the regular offense that the Kings run, they were just trying to deny the ball. And with Sabonis not being out there to throw passes when someone makes a backdoor cut off of that pressure, you're not going to have Alex Len do that. Trey Lyles isn't really going to do that. And so I think that really makes you appreciate what Sabonis brings to this team, because teams just aren't able to press up as much on the perimeter when Sabonis is in the game. Because how many times have we seen Keegan Murray back cut and Sabonis just find him? And that wasn't really an option this game. And so they just kept having to run things on the perimeter until someone got open. And the Hawks came out hot from three. Zachary Rissache hit a couple early. Dyson Daniels hit a deep one. And then on the other side, you had Herter, who started 0 for 2 from deep. Lyles went 1 for 3. And it just seemed like everything was collapsing because Fox goes out for his normal rest. Keegan, he tried to make a couple things happen in the first quarter, and they didn't go down. And then also you have Keon come into the game. He gets the ball right under the basket, gets his defender in the air with a nice fake, and then just misses a wide open layup. And at that point, it was 22-6, and you're just like, all right, let's just move on to the next one. But then that's when the Kings started to heat up. Keegan hit one. And once Fox came back in for that second stint, he got a lot more aggressive. He was getting into the paint. He was attracting the defense, and the shooters started knocking down shots. The Hawks started 6 for 8 from deep, but then the Kings went on their massive run. And they went on a 9-0 run, almost to end the quarter, except for that DeAndre Hunter putback. But it was just the bench showing up. Keon hitting a 3 in that 9-0 run. J-Mac and Doug McDermott all chipping in. And the bench combined to shoot 12 for 19 from 3. And as a team, we shot 20 for 46, which is pretty insane when you look and see that Kevin Herter was 1 for 10 from 3. So we shot 43.5% from 3 with Kevin Herter shooting 1 for 10. And the Kings defense was pretty non-existent, and Trae Young was just picking us apart early in the first quarter. But once he went out, then the Kings were starting to make things happen defensively, because the Kings' entire philosophy this game defensively was make someone other than Trae Young beat us. And I would actually say that it worked pretty well. Maybe it didn't work well in that first stint in the first quarter, because I think the Hawks were ready for it, because we tried to do the same thing in the last game in Atlanta. And Trae Young, he was just ready to get off the ball, and he would get that screen up top. The Kings would blitz, and he would get rid of the ball so quickly. And the Hawks seemed really ready on the backside. Like they knew what they were doing. They had a plan on how they were going to convert these buckets. And so that's how they were scoring. It was Trae Young getting off the ball very quickly. He only had 7 shots in this game, and he was 1 for 7 with 7 points, but he had 19 assists. And it ended up limiting the Hawks to 109 points. And a big part of that was really the Kings putting their foot down in the non-Trae Young minutes. Trae Young was plus 15 in a 1-point win. And I thought the defense really picked up at the start of the second quarter. The Kings just had some absolutely great defensive possessions where guys were closing out, recovering. There's one specific play from Doug McDermott where he runs out to the shooter, runs him off the 3-point line, but then still stays in front of him. And so I was really impressed with Doug McDermott there. And then you just had Keon Ellis being absolutely on fire. It was just 3 after 3 after 3. He ended up going 9 for 15, cooled off a little bit late. But then you could just see the confidence as a whole rising from the Kings. And there was a moment where Herter had missed his first few, and he comes off while, the Kings are in this big run and Keon's knocking him down, and he takes a pretty tough 3, but one that he can make, and he drains it and forces a timeout, and Mike Brown was just hyping him up. Because that's what Mike Brown wants. He wants Kevin Herter shooting the ball like that. And I don't think that totally continued for Herter late in this game. And I think that's something that actually hurt the Kings. Yes, he was 1 for 10, but I think he should have been shooting more. I think he passed up quite a few looks, and it made the Kings offense go nowhere. But I'll get to that later. But in that moment, the Kings went on a streak of 11 of 12 from 3. Keon being the only one that missed one. Like, he was bringing us down. He was bringing the percentage down by missing 1 3-point shot in that stretch. And the one criticism of the Kings in this stretch is they let the Hawks run back the other way a few times. And they did it about 4 times in this game where they would make a basket or they would even miss and they just wouldn't get back and they would get beat down the floor to the rim. And that happened too many times. And it was something we saw when Keegan Murray was going off against the Jazz a year ago. He was hitting all those threes. The Jazz stayed in that game for a little bit because Keegan would knock down a three and then the Jazz would just run down the other end and get a layup. And you saw the same thing happening here. So the Kings just have to be more locked in. It's like, yes, you just made this three, but you still got to lock in defensively. And so that let the Hawks hang around a bit. Also, the Hawks got into the penalty very early in the second quarter, which definitely hurt the Kings in terms of defense later in the quarter. And when Fox went out in the second quarter, the offense went back to looking pretty rough. They generated some good looks just by being patient, running their actions around the perimeter, but it was just nobody could get into the paint. Even sometimes when Fox was out there, the Hawks would send numbers at him and he would have to get off the ball, and you just needed Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter to make something happen, and they both just couldn't make anything happen getting inside the three-point arc. Two guys that we saw in the second quarter, we saw Colby Jones play 3 minutes. We saw Isaac Jones play 2 minutes. Isaac Jones, this was his third game in 3 days because he played with Stockton last night. Colby did as well, but he didn't play the first game for the Kings a few nights ago. So that was interesting. I was surprised they even sent those guys down, but they only played 5 combined minutes. Colby, he got inside on one play and then got completely blocked. And that's always what I worry about with him, is just he's not the fastest and he hasn't quite learned in NBA speed how to, use his body and use his change of speed to get open looks. So he just got completely rejected at the rim. But he recovered it, passed it out to Keon. Keon's got it from there. He'll hit the three. The one thing I saw from Isaac Jones, the one great thing he did was draw a foul, trying to offensive rebound, getting the Kings another possession, which was huge because it came at a time where the Hawks were, kind of coming back into it. And then as that quarter went on, the Kings just started turning the ball over a lot. They had 17 turnovers in this game. The one thing I will say is a lot of the turnovers were when they were driving inside and they were just getting stripped of the ball and they were trying to make something happen. Those turnovers are a lot better than some of the turnovers that we've been seeing recently where they're just throwing the ball away for no reason in their own end or up top, things like that. Like those turnovers kill you. The ones where you're driving to the basket, Keegan Murray had 4 turnovers, but I would much rather live with that than him not trying to get to the basket, because that's the thing with Keegan. He's just got to try, especially with Monk, DeRozan, and Sabonis all out. He's just got to try to make something happen. And so he was in that second quarter, even though he was turning the ball over. The Kings' offense was just much better with Trey Lyles out there at the 5, and that's not surprising. The times where we had Alex Len in, or we had Orlando Robinson in, the spacing just was obviously not as good. And with only one guy usually that could make something happen off the dribble, that's just really rough because the Hawks were just able to send bodies at Fox. And when you don't have the entire perimeter spaced out, it lets the Hawks be able to defend 3-on-4 a lot easier. I did like some of the minutes where you had Jordan McLaughlin out there and it let Fox play a little more off ball. It let him set up in that right-hand corner and be able to play off the ball coming off screens. I thought that was very important because we've seen a lot of that from Fox this season. And so he just needs a little less time on the ball. And that's what being out there with Jordan McLaughlin kind of provided. We also saw a nice play where Keon, after he had been hot from 3, on one possession, he got run off the 3-point line multiple times. And each time he drove in and made the right pass, it ended with him passing to the corner to Doug McDermott for 3, who went 2 for 3 in this game. And that's a great play. That's exactly what we want to see Keon doing. And that's just what we needed more of. Good decisions when driving the ball to the paint from guys like Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter. Those being the 2 most important ones. Obviously, it'd be great if anyone could do it, if Trey Lyles could do it more or Doug McDermott, but you expect it less from those guys. And the Kings ended the first half with a 2-point lead. And I was pretty happy with that, even though the Kings had gotten a double-digit lead. It's like we'll take a 2 point lead with how this game started, with how it was just back and forth. I think watching the Kings run the anybody but Trae Young defense was frustrating, but it did work because obviously there were times they got open shots. There were times where they got open dunks. But I thought for the most part, it was the right move. Limiting Trae Young to only 7 points, like you have to be happy with that and force the other guys to beat you. And in the second half, the defense really tightened up and guys missed shots. Bogdan Bogdanovic, in his first game back, he wasn't great from three. They were leaving Dyson Daniels, and he knocked down 2 for 5. And it's like, good for him, but you kind of just have to live with that. DeAndre Hunter goes 4 for 8 from three again. You have to live with that. The start of the third felt like the start of the first offensively, and another time where the Kings don't have that spacing with Alex Len out there. And it was Fox. I felt like Fox kept creating advantages for his teammates. He kept creating moments where Kevin Huerter could either shoot the ball or he had someone running at him and he could get inside. Same with Keegan Murray. And again, they just weren't able to generate offense. Mike Brown won a challenge. He's been on fire with his challenges on Trey Lyles taking a charge that was initially called a block. I thought it was a block at first, but then he was out of the restricted area there. So that was good. But then you had Keegan Murray picking up his fourth foul. And it was just such a frustrating day for Keegan. In terms of picking up fouls, some of them were pretty soft. Some of them were just stupid. He picked up this fourth foul with 1 second on the shot clock, reaching in on Trae Young. Like, that is a brutal way to pick up your fourth foul. You got to be smarter than that. And he just could not find his way in this game. And he's had a frustrating stretch here. But luckily, you had Keon just come straight off the bench, and the Kings had a sequence where Trey Lyles gets a steal. Kings push it up. Fox hits a three. They come back down. Huerter gets a steal. They pushed up. Keon gets a three. And the Kings just kept finding the hot shooter in transition. They kept running. They kept finding Keon. He just kept knocking them down. And the bench just provided more offense than what the starters were really providing. And I think it is just because of the spacing that they provided. I also loved when the Hawks went on a little run in that third. You had Jordan McLaughlin and Trey Lyles driving the basketball, drawing fouls, getting to the line. And that kind of helped the Kings survive the Hawks run a little bit. And the Kings ended up 4 by the end of the third quarter. But it was a little frustrating because it felt like they should be up more. They just kept getting called for moving screens. And that was definitely not called both ways. But the same thing happened at the start of the fourth. It was just the fourth quarter. I don't even want to talk about it. It was just no flow, all dominated by the officiating. It was 20-15. The Hawks won the fourth quarter. And the Kings, they were a -3 in the Fox minus Trae Young minutes, right? So Trae Young wasn't out there, Fox was out there, and they were a -3. And a lot of it was because of foul calls disrupting them. Keegan fouling out on a loose ball foul. The only real criticism I have of the Kings in the fourth quarter, because I thought for the most part they were doing what they had to do and they just weren't getting the calls to go their way. I think the one criticism is Kevin Huerter just had to shoot the ball. There were times where he was open and he wasn't having a good shooting day, but he's just got to shoot the ball because we're just working around the perimeter. Like, when he gets the ball and he has a little space, that's the best shot we're going to get. And there were times where he was just stuck on the ball and was too slow in making a decision. Because it's like, if you're not going to shoot the ball, then drive it or pass it, right? But he was just stuck on the ball for too long. And so the Kings offense slowed down a little bit in that way. But then obviously down the stretch, you had the Hunter taking down Fox and hitting a three, then the technical. That was brutal. The Kings still battled back. They got some stops. Keon Ellis got to the line on drives twice, which was huge. And that's just what other guys needed to be able to do more, get into the lane. But he was just using his three-point shooting to get himself going in other areas of the court. Keon also had a huge transition block, I believe, on Capella. I think he got a piece of that. And then he drew a foul while he was setting a screen. He ended up going 5 for 6 from the line late in this game. And the Kings had a shot. They got a stop. McLaughlin got that rebound, and Keon Ellis was streaking by him. He could have found him. It would have been a 1v1 between Keon and Dyson Daniels on the other end. Would have been nice to see what could have happened there. Even if he doesn't go to the rim, I think it disrupts the Hawks defense more. But Kings got it into Fox's hands, and the Kings had a timeout, didn't use it because they were in transition, which I totally support. And then it looked like Fox got hit on the wrist to me from the replay. That's what I saw. But that was, it was unfortunate because Fox has struggled against Dyson Daniels in the past. That was not the case in this game. Fox had Dyson's number. It was really impressive. Fox is just on another level right now. He did absolutely everything he could. He hit one clutch midi late, was making all the right plays. And, he didn't get the foul calls, obviously, that he wanted with 4 free throws. But then also, he didn't get the help from his teammates that he needed when the Hawks were throwing bodies at him. But he ends up going for 28 points, 7 assists. Looking at some other individual performances, Trey Lyles, again, asked a lot to play the 5. And this is a much tougher matchup than the Utah Jazz when you're asked to play the 5. This is going up against Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, especially Clint Capella, trying to keep him off the glass. And I thought Trey Lyles did a pretty solid job. He ended up with 10 rebounds. I never really saw him getting outworked on the glass. He also knocked down 3 out of 7 threes, and he's just looked so much better than the start of the season. He's continuing that. He's usually a pretty streaky guy, and so he's on a hot streak right now. He'll probably cool down just because that's usually what happens. But hopefully it never gets as bad as the start of the season. I don't think it will, because usually the streakiness is just in the 3-point shooting and not in other parts of the game. And I feel like he's settled into the other parts of the game, the rebounding, playing defense. He's taking charges now, which he just wasn't doing at the very start of the season. I think that's a good indicator of his feel for the game. So happy to see, him contributing this much, playing 38 minutes. Keegan, talked about a lot, but 3 for 9 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, was making an impact defensively when he wasn't getting called for fouls. Definitely was more aggressive in this game, trying to take it to the basket, trying to shoot over guys in the mid-range. It just didn't happen for him, but I'm happy that he was more aggressive. But he's just got to play through this slump. It's unfortunate that it's happening in a time where we, needed him more with injuries, but I got a lot of faith in him that he'll play through this slump. It was a frustrating game for him, but he'll definitely get through this. Alex Len played 17 minutes, 3 blocks, had 2 personal fouls, pretty sure both of them on moving screens. One of them a pretty questionable one. But I don't know, he had a solid game, airballed a 3. That wasn't great, but that was when the Kings were just passing it around the perimeter. And, he was open. That was probably the best shot we were getting on that possession, so fair enough. But, yeah, I don't think the Kings played great when he was out there offensively. I think it clogged up the floor too much, because it might work better if we have better offensive players out there. But I think with Fox being the only guy that can really handle the ball, you just need to constantly be spaced out. Same can be said for Orlando Robinson, who played 7 minutes. I thought he played a solid game, came in and was fine. Definitely nothing special, but again, we just really needed a more spaced out floor. Kevin Huerter, 4 for 15 from the field, 1 for 10 from 3. Had another 3 steal game, so that's good, but just needed more from him. And I know it's crazy to say, but I wish he took more than 10 threes. I know he went 1 for 10, but I wanted him to keep shooting in that fourth quarter, because the offense wasn't flowing and he was getting some looks, and him passing those up just slows things down even more. I think it leads to more turnovers. If you shoot the ball, you might be able to get an offensive rebound, especially if it's a long offensive rebound. The Kings won the battle of the boards in terms of getting 9 offensive rebounds to the Hawks 6. They won the rebounding battle by 8, which is pretty impressive seeing as how small of a lineup they were playing for a lot of the game. Down the stretch, they were going with who? Fox, Keon, McLaughlin, Huerter, Lyles. I think that was the lineup. That's an insanely small lineup. And they held up on the boards. Obviously, there's the one late that the Hawks were able to get, which I don't know. Maybe it looked like it went off Huerter. It might have gone off. Was it Hunter? I can't remember. I don't know. It was pretty close. But yeah, I thought the Kings held up on the boards. Doug McDermott came in for 19 minutes. I loved what he brought. I mean, he had an efficient 3-point shooting game for once, which this might be his first of the season. I can't remember. 2 for 3. And then defensively, I thought he made smart plays. There was even that play in transition with Trae Young. Like, Doug McDermott's going to get scored on by Trae Young. So he just goes out and he fouls him. Trae Young was not shooting. It wasn't his fault the refs gave him free throws. That should have been a good, kind of transition take foul that they wouldn't have called, right? It should have been a foul that he took that was side out, and he would have saved a bucket there. But the refs just gave him free throws for no reason, so that was fun. But it was a smart play. It was a smart play. The refs just, kind of ruined it. Jordan McLaughlin, 20 minutes, thought he was really solid. Had 8 points efficiently, 4 assists, 0 turnovers. That's the big number for me. Came in, hit his 1-3. And I love the way he drives to the rim. It never feels like he's out of control. He's always picking the right option. And that's exactly what I was hoping for when the Kings signed him. And he's been doing that the last few games. So he was very important. I think he also played solid defense. And then we get to the man of the hour, Keon Ellis. 9 for 17 from the field, 9 for 15 from the 3-point line. Also went 6 for 7 from the free throw line. A block, a steal, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 33 points, career high in points, career high in 3-pointers made. He was just so confident shooting the ball. It started out when he missed that open layup. I was like, here we go again. Keon, another disaster class offensively. And then he just was pulling with confidence. I think he made like 2, and then he was in the corner pretty heavily covered, and he just pulls and makes it. After he only played 10 minutes last game, feels like he finally got the message. Shoot the ball. Shoot the ball. That's what Mike Brown seems like has been trying to get across to him. He finally shot the ball 15 times from 3 in this game. I think his percentage from 3 should be even better, because I think he got fouled on at least a couple 3-point attempts, if not 3 of them. So I was really happy. He was just making impactful play after impactful play on both ends of the court. Played a near perfect game. And after the last game, I said, Keon, he's in a slump. He's a young player, a play out of it. And what do you know? The next game is the one where he plays out of the slump. He did have that one scare where I think he got stepped on and he rolled his ankle, but seemed fine late in the game. Made some big plays. So we got him his confidence. Now we just need to get Keegan his confidence and get our guys back. That's the thing. I felt like if the Kings won this game, we'd be in just an amazing spot. I'd feel so good about where we are. Being able to get to this 3-day break that we have, and then we can get our guys healthy. And so it's like, okay, we lose this game, but it was a good effort. And now you have Sabonis and DeMar, who I believe will both be back for the Clippers game. From everything we're hearing, it seems like they will be. Malik's not too far away either. We've gotten our bench guys cooking. We've seen what we got from, J-Mac. He can be a contributor now. We know what we're getting from Len and Orlando Robinson and Doug McDermott. Even Isaac Jones, who I think has made super impactful plays. Trey Lyles has his confidence back. Keon has his confidence back. The missing piece right now is Keegan getting his confidence back offensively, and we're in a beautiful spot because Fox is unstoppable. It'll be interesting to see kind of how he plays when other guys are back. Hopefully he continues to get to the rim. I mean, I don't think he necessarily just started getting to the rim when guys got injured. I think it started a little before. And so I think the Kings are in a solid spot right now. They're 8-7. That doesn't sound great, but I think everything considered, it's solid. Now, we don't have a game until Friday, which I believe is an NBA Cup game against the Clippers. And then the upcoming stretch, it's not the toughest. You come back home against Brooklyn. OKC, that's obviously tough, but they're down all of their centers. Then you go out, you play Minnesota, you play Portland. So that's the next 5-game stretch. We lost this 5-game stretch. We went 2-3. Very close to winning, obviously, a couple of those games, the overtime game in Minnesota and obviously this one. But I think this team is kind of figuring some things out, figuring what has been successful. And I think they are on the verge of going on a run. And, it's not great to go 2-2 on a homestand, but the Kings the past few seasons, it feels like being home or away has never really mattered to them. So despite this loss, I'm feeling pretty good. Anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. As always, thank you to the members of this channel, No Rain and Joe Mama, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.